What's up, Change the Channel podcast listeners? My name is Megan Grace, and this is another episode of Change the Channel podcast. Welcome back to the show. On today's episode, we're going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I've actually been kind of in a different phase of feeling into this, and it's going to be about mental health. So the purpose of this episode, whenever we talk about anything on Change the Channel, it's about living in the reality of what people are experiencing, and the channel that I would like to change in this episode is the feeling that you are alone. If you are moving through a heavy period of mental health struggles or challenges, or, just a season of being a little bit more down or more anxious, any of that stuff, the channel that I feel like can often come up within us is this feeling that we are somehow alone, somehow that this is going to be this way forever. There's also a lot of shame, I feel like, around, especially if any of you are in leadership or are someone that is running a company that has to do with empowerment or feeling the best in your body, or, as a somatic coach myself, I pride myself. I spend so much time with my clients helping them reframe and reshape the stories that their bodies hold. And I consider this to be sacred work. And so lately, as I have been just moving through what it feels like to be in a heavy season of depression, I realized the channel that goes on in my head often is that I don't want to be a burden to people. I don't want to talk about it. I hardly even want to feel it, let alone let other people know I'm feeling it. And so the conversation and the pain behind it becomes, it becomes bigger than in my life it needs to be. And so I have a couple stories about different ways that I've shifted this narrative of when I am sad or I am depressed or I'm feeling heaviness and the weightedness of the world within my body, that I need to keep it quiet and keep it to myself. Instead, one of the times was actually I had gone to one of my best friend's birthday parties. She has this amazing ability to bring people together, to cultivate love and belonging. And so for her birthdays, she'll turn them into an excuse to have a little mini retreat. Yes, my friends are some of the coolest people I know. So she rents a cabin, has people come in, and within the weekend there is dancing, games. We went to some hot springs, did cold plunges, got to get out in nature and also got to be inward. And there was just such a synchronicity of love within this group. And I realized it was almost overwhelming. It was so overwhelming to the point where I felt myself being thawed by the love around me. And when you're thawed, you feel everything. So I was already coming in feeling these levels of depression. And so it was almost like the love just took off any layers that I had tried to put up to keep myself feeling safe. And shit, nothing feels more visceral than almost that exposed nerve of vulnerability. And so I was with my friend. She is someone that just consistently reminds me to be my full self in all the ways. I was with her and another one of her friends as we were driving back from just this epic time of being in these hot springs. We did photo shoots, the steam is coming up from everywhere. It felt like we were in an etherical other land. You would sort of hike down into Boise National Park or National Forest, and the backdrop is snow-filled hills with trees that had been, burnt before. So there were these little almost marker points of sticks all along this just wide open space of white. And walking down kind of this winding path and got to like this beautiful rushing river that had little bits of snow on the side and these like steaming natural hot springs that you could kind of climb up to and sit in and feel nourished and refreshed. And then we moved around the corner and there was what looked like kind of like an ice cave. Can't make this up. It felt like I was on 5 different movie sets at the same time. And then after the ice cave, then things shifted into this bigger pool of super warm hot water and like a hot springs waterfall that you could get into. And so people would do a cold plunge, come back up, get warm, and I was so alive. It felt so just in my body and grateful and nourished, and still was feeling the pain of being in a space of depression. And so got in the car with my friend and with my friend's other friend, and she, we started to kind of go around and update each other on, all things relationship, life, human ways of being and, what was going on. And I started to feel this sinking feeling in my stomach of, oh my gosh, they're going to get to me in this car. And everyone that's here seems to be really enjoying things in their life. And I have enjoyed today. Today has been so powerful, but up until today, things have been really hard. And I sat with myself, and the channel that started as we were driving, the scenery is still beautiful. The channels that started are like, who are you to feel sad? Like, why are you just looking at the negative? You should be better than this. Don't be the one that brings down the mood in the car. Everyone's talking about happy stuff. Why can't you just play along? You can find something that's happy. You always do. Put on a brave face and keep the mood light. And that was the channel of people pleasing and of shame around feeling things with mental illness that has kept me quiet in the past. And what I realized is the brave move was to be honest. The brave move was to potentially to take up enough space to say what I was actually feeling and to believe that these women that were there were actually interested in hearing my true self, my true story, my true experience. And so when I got to me, took a deep breath, and I could feel like the inside parts of myself just quivering a little bit, like when you're about to do that brave leap of vulnerability. And I was like, the channel I choose is bravery. The channel I choose is vulnerability. The channel I choose is authenticity. And I just verbally jumped off that cliff. And I told them, I said, I have been in one of the longest stages of continued depression that I have felt in a while. The seasons in the Northwest are kind of challenging, just in the fact that it's like cloudy and there's a moodiness to it. And I'm in a season of deep refining within myself. And and I just told them, like, I feel the heaviness in a level of depth that is visceral and painful in ways that I didn't even really know I could feel. And I'm grateful that I've healed to the point where I can feel so deeply. And at the same time, it's just been a time. And usually I'm the one that's coaxing people out of their times, and I'm not quite sure how to coax myself out of this. And I felt the mood shift in the car. I felt really loved in that moment. My friend told me how much she appreciates when I show up as my full self. And I was like, just mind blown at how it felt like such an act of rebellion to actually tell people how the fuck I felt. And so I realized that is when it feels like jumping off a cliff to be that honest, that is a channel that gets to change. And also the channel of needing to fix it right away. Like I decided to give myself permission that even at the end of telling them that I was feeling that way, that I wasn't going to tie it up with a bow and say, well, but it's going to be fine and no one needs to worry about me or whatever. I just realized that they get to feel however they want to about my share, and I get to feel into what it felt like to share. And it was powerful, y'all. When was the last time someone asked you how you are and you said something other than the knee-jerk reaction of, I'm fine, how are you? It's like we've learned this weird social graces of the hot potato of holding, like the presence to actually share with each other who we are and what we feel. And we're so quick to be, hot potato politeness of I'm good, how are you? I'm good, how are you? And I just deeply believe that we are sitting in a space of humanity and humans desiring authenticity and connection and community and belonging in a deeper, more visceral way than I've ever really felt before. A lot of my friends that are deep empaths and that are feeling, on behalf of the collective all the time say that these waves are sort of coming through for them as well, or their clients. And so my challenge to myself, and then vicariously I challenge you as well, is let's catch those moments where we move into the mask of people pleasing, I'm fine, and we actually step into using more adjectives and more authenticity and bravery to share with people how we actually are doing. And so then maybe things like feeling depressed doesn't have to feel like something that you suffer by yourself. Maybe anxiety stops being that, dastardly, horrific eye rolling, bit of drama. And it actually starts to be something that we just share about. In my house where I live, I have two now and will be a third roommate. And we did 2020 together. I moved into this house actually on April Fool's Day of 2020, which is still hilarious to me, if I'm honest. And we realized very quickly that everyone was going through kind of a lot during that time. And we all were going through it in different ways. And in going through things in a collective way, sometimes we would step on each other's past feelings or experiences. And we were, because of that time, and especially the way that things were handled in Portland, we were spending a lot of time with each other. And so I was like, man, we get to come up with a different language around this because we're going to be stepping on each other's triggers all over the place. And it's going to feel like our fault. And the channel that got to change was that not saying things out loud would make things better, or that not be the person again in the room to bring down the mood. So we decided instead, because we are a house that is dedicated to mental health and well-being and the pursuit of all of those things, is I started to call it Edna. Edna, whenever, the mood of heaviness and blue just had come into my life. It was either that or like that kind of anxious, twitchy feeling. But when you just didn't feel like yourself, we would say to each other, like, hey, it's just a day where Edna's visiting. And the other person would then instinctively know, instead of being like, well, what's wrong with you? Or what do we do? They would say, well, what does Edna need? Does Edna need company? Does Edna need time alone? Does Edna need a distraction? Does Edna need ice cream? Does Edna need to cry? Do we need less lights on in the house? And it became this thing where instead of it being us, me versus them, or like, it was us collectively caring for and nurturing the needs of Edna. And Edna has been this beautiful code word that has shifted the feeling of going through a hard time from being a solo activity, living in a house, to a shared experience where we all get to show up for each other in mighty ways. And we also get to give each other the space to move through it. And we get to see each other as, in our wholeness, that yes, Edna has shown up, and yes, Edna is being that kind of, unwelcomed house guest that seems to come in and always eats, drinks the last of the milk, but puts the carton back totally empty, or, just leaves hair in the drain, or just that wet blanket style visitor that it comes that you're just like, oh man, not you again. Instead of it feeling like it was any of our faults for Edna showing up, as if we were bringing negativity into the house, we started to see Edna as this visitor, this wayward traveler that has just landed in our home. We're not sure how long she's going to be there, but instead of ignoring her or downplaying her, or creating a channel around her that she is a problem that is a result of somebody doing something wrong or bad, and we just simply gave her space to just be as she is. It started to turn out that the days where Edna was alive and kicking and setting up shop in our home decreased. And I really believe that that's because what we resist persists, right? In the channel with this that gets to change is I'm strong if I'm silent, and if nothing bothers me. If I just don't give a fuck about anything, then I am the strongest in the room. Nothing can hurt me. And what I learned is that the shift with this is actually when I don't resist that which is uncomfortable, and I invite community around me, and we create a name for it where there's a level of engaging, then we get to speak about the quote elephant in the room as something that we all get to tend to together. And just the weight of not being the only one having a feeling, having a heavy moment, having to contend with Edna all alone actually bonded us together in this beautiful way. And we went from 3 or 4 people living in a house that I personally didn't know any of them before I answered an ad on Facebook. And now they're some of my really dear friends that have seen me through my ups and my downs and my vulnerabilities. And we have created something really special in this house. And so I offer this to you as we move through what it means to be in 2023 during the winter time, when, when people are going inward and potentially the feelings are more heightened and high. What would it be like with your loved ones if a part of, your own personal growth that is challenging, what if you gave it a name and a personality, and you offered it kindness instead of resisting it or blaming your friend for having it? Instead of rolling our eyes, what if we opened our eyes and actually saw that everyone, I really believe, is walking around with in their own arena. Like Brene Brown says, when she talks about the Theodore Roosevelt quote, and it's talking about basically what it's like to be a person, like an all-in person, the person that's in the arena, getting their ass kicked, trying new things, that's their face is marred with blood and dirt, and and they fall down and they're trying. They are moving valiantly, and driving forward in something. And if they fail, they fail falling forward, falling in a space of bravery and greatness because they are trying. It's not the person in the cheap seats that's hurling their insults or their thought process on that person. It is the person that's in the arena that is contending with whatever mental health challenges, or the new job that you're trying to get, or the worthiness conversation that you are overcoming, or the PTSD from a past relationship, or what it feels like to be single for a while and whatever led you to that, whether you choose to or not. The excitement or fear of potentially being a new parent, being in a marriage where things are challenging and you're not communicating, and there's layers upon layers of pain in this relationship. Like, the brave ones are the ones that are in the arena and are doing the work. And when you're in the arena doing the work, Ednas will show up. They are there to contend with you and to be in there with you. And what if we stopped being people in the cheap seats, yelling down our ideas of what these brave souls and brave leaders should be doing, and instead joined them and asked them, what do we need to do to care for and move through the message and the wisdom and the lesson that Edna, in this form, in this moment, in this challenge, has shown up for us to lean into and to grow through. And so I just say to you, warriors, warriors are people that are interested in changing the channel and not simply going into apathy mode, or floating along as if the world will just tell you what to do. When you choose to be a change maker and a channel changer, then you, my friend, are in the arena. And when you're in the arena, my hat's off to you. And I am interested in the things that you're sharing and the things that you're learning, because you, my dear one, are brave in that moment. And I invite you to utilize some of the tools, like calling it Edna, if that helps you, or pick another name that actually feels a little bit silly, because dealing with some of these hard things can feel like a lot of work, and we get to add levity in the places that we want to, or the places we're able to. And that's another channel that I love to change when it comes to dealing with hard mental health spaces. Is it doesn't always have to be intense, painful, sad drudgery. We can actually decide to add some levity to it by giving it a silly nickname and making it feel a little bit human. You, dear one, that are changing channels every day in your life, the powerful thing about it is, even as light and kind of silly and playful as, I enjoy keeping it on this podcast, we are rewriting the very cells in our DNA, the ways that our brain, the pathways, the neural pathways that are going on in your brain are changing when you decide that you are going to change the channel away from what has always been into what is possible and what can be. And that's amazing, because that says that the channels and ruts and grooves that maybe you inherited from your family, the ruts and grooves or hormonal shiftings and things that happened that maybe came down in your DNA as well, things that were passed down ancestrally, that they get to shift because you say so. And when you decide to be in that place of power within yourself, where you actually sit with and create some levity around something that was feeling a little bit hard, or be brave enough to share with someone that you are going through a hard moment. And even if the feeling doesn't change in that moment, the bravery inside of you changes because you let somebody know about it. You did something different than you've done in the past. And every time we set ourselves up with different tools or a different route or a different approach, then we are setting ourselves up for the potential of a different outcome. And every different outcome that we create for ourselves gets to be passed down energetically, ancestrally, to the next generation of people. We get to enjoy it, and I deeply believe that we get to pass it on as well. So with this episode, number one, I just want you to know that we're taking the shunning away from a depression. If you are feeling low and if you are having a hard time, please reach out to someone that you trust, or feel free to hit me up on, social media. My handle is the Megan Grace MVMT. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Send me a DM. Let me know where you're at with this. We get to contend and move through these things together. And sometimes the bravest step is the first person that you tell that you are going through a season of pain or a season that's challenging. And so, number one, there's no more shunning in depression. It gets to be a communal and collective community thing that is held. Number two, all healing doesn't have to be in a feeling of drudgery and intenseness. You can add some levity in places that you feel is appropriate and is therapeutically supportive for you. I do that personally by naming my depression Edna, and that feels really supportive for me. So feel free to borrow Edna's name, her legacy, or you can also pick your own. The other thing is I just wanted to delight in you for a minute. Regardless of whether you are at a mountaintop, the depths of the depths, or somewhere in between, you are so worthy of love and belonging. And thank you, brave one, for choosing to step in the arena, to do the hard work, to not sit in the cheap seats and hurl your judgments or past thoughts about others down on the people that are doing the work to change the things that we want to see differently in the world. Because honestly, it's the leaders and change makers that are going to help us see the world in a different way. And if there is something that you are passionate about, that you just wake up in the morning being like, God, this is something that I wish was different. What if that was the seed or the spark that was within you that said, I'm going to go into the arena. Because I see this, I get to do something about this. And then as the Ednas and the gremlins and the intense moments come up, what if then you share that with your support network, with your community? And what if we actually got to rewrite some of these stories for good so that there wasn't so many channels that needed to be changed? What if a channel stopped being on the air? It's as if they turned off that on the air sign forever because of your bravery to stand in that space. What if we started to see our own bravery and showing up with each other and for each other with that much power? Because wow, we are powerful humans when we set our minds to it. All right. Dear ones, thank you so much for being with me on this episode of Change the Channel. In this moment, feel free to give yourself a big hug. So wrap your arms around yourself and hold it for 10 seconds and just breathe in what it feels like to have that contact. When was the last time that you were held this way? When was the last time someone talked about something hard and then offered you a hug? Is that a common experience for you? Is that something new? What do you feel in your body when you lean into that? Or are you like rolling your eyes at me at this moment? Like, I'm not hugging myself. You know what? Do you? You get to choose. Hold on to you. Hold on to your friends. Hold on to your loved ones. And thank you again for the mighty work that you're doing to change the channel where you are. And this was another episode, my dear, of Change the Channel podcast.